Okay, so my reflection today is about anger. I received an interesting message from one of the subscribers on YouTube, and in reading the message, I really saw how we in the West deal with anger, that we see it as a bad thing. And I know that I personally saw anger as a bad thing, and I really suppressed it. I did everything I could do not to look at my anger, mainly because that's what I'd learned from family, that's what I'd learned from colleagues or society as a whole. That's how you deal with anger. As a man, you don't show your emotions. So, in receiving this message, it was like, yeah, it's good, because within myself, I still have anger. I still have times when I get very angry and feel it within myself. And we have this misnomer in the West that anger's a bad thing. And today the talk is, anger, good or bad. And for me, anger is neither good nor bad. It just is. It's just energy. I used to struggle a lot with anger when I was living in the monastery. And I treated myself very badly because of that. Because I just had suppressed anger so long, suddenly, boom, it came out, went everywhere. So one of the monks used to say to me, anger is just energy, Piers. And I looked at him, blank look on my face. I didn't really understand him. I kind of got the principle, oh yeah, energy. And eventually it sunk in after a few years. I was like, oh yeah, it's just energy, it's life force. And after being in the monastery probably a year and a half, nearly 2 years, about a year and a half, I got very sick physically. So I'd had all this anger, boom, really unskillful things that I did with my anger, like hitting walls and kind of trees and things like that with my fists, and really hurt myself because I was feeling so much rage that I'd built up and had as a young child and wasn't able to express it. And suddenly I had that space to express this. I didn't have the things that I was using to suppress it, which was distracting myself, watching TV, going on the internet, no sexual contact, nothing, I wasn't able to distract myself. I couldn't drink alcohol, I couldn't take drugs anymore. It's like suddenly it was like, I'm feeling this, I didn't know what to do with it. And so I burnt myself out, really. So within a year and a half, I got ME, and I couldn't get out of bed, and I couldn't really do very much. So eventually I found this balance after a few years of learning how to manage my anger, to see it as fire, as passion, and seeing it as a good thing. So on one level it is just energy, but I think anger is actually a very positive thing if it's channeled in the right way. What happens in the West is we suppress it, we hold on to it. We're not allowed to feel this anger because mummy or daddy told us don't get angry, don't hurt someone else. So we hold on to this anger, and then something just triggers. And we explode. It's like boom! And all of a sudden, we've done something really stupid. And we're going, oh no, why on earth did I do that? And then we spend the next few weeks or months or days or hours cleaning up after ourselves. So the energy that we feel when we're angry, there's nothing wrong with that. The feeling It's when we engage or we do something with that energy. So we say something nasty, we're in an argument, or we start having a discussion and we just say the nastiest things. It's like out of anger. We do stupid things, road rage. We do things out of anger because it's like we're not dealing with this anger inside of ourselves. We're not dealing with it. So suddenly something triggers it, and because the anger's there, it's like this molten ball. Suddenly, boom! It's got to go somewhere. And it's almost like we attract in these situations, these scenarios, to let go of this energy. So what I'm proposing we do is a different way. We have this energy here, this nebulous, this fire, and we call it anger, but it also could be passion, fire, passion. And one of the things you can do is you channel this. So one of the things over the years that I started to do, certainly in the monastery, working with therapists, and I've worked with many therapists over the years, everything from Jungian analysts to counsellors to psychotherapists, and working with the Jungian analysts, and that's definitely the best that I've worked with were Jungian analysts. This analyst in particular got me to paint, so I started to paint. The first 6 months I was just painting black and white, and eventually she said, is it about time you'd use some colour? So when I started using colour, it just changed everything. It was like, oh! And I loved painting. And I really struggled with painting in the same breath, because as a child I'd grown up that I had to paint a certain way. It had to look like something, and if it didn't, then it needed to be thrown away. It needed to be rejected. And so when I started painting again, and it didn't look like a car, it didn't look like a tree, I just got into anger again. So I learnt techniques for painting and circumnavigating that part of my brain. One of the ways I would recommend to people is what I used to do is painting like a child. There's an art movement in the 50s, I believe in Europe, called Cobra, which was essentially doing childish art. So they would do very simple, children's drawings. And so I was quite inspired. Someone had a copy of an exhibition they'd been to by the Cobra artists, and I felt very inspired looking at this while I was in the monastery, so I started to paint like a child. And I found it really helpful for circumnavigating this critical part of my mind saying, you've got to draw like this, you've got to be like this. So I just started to paint like a child. So, and I still do that now, because not only it allows that part of myself up. Another thing to do is you paint, but use both hands. You draw using both hands, and this helps to integrate, the right side of the brain for your left hand and the left side of the brain for your right hand. So I'll do both, and it helps to integrate left and right hemispheres of the brain. So that's a really good way, first step, of connecting with your anger is paint. And what I recommend, you can use pieces of paper. What I use is cardboard. You can go off to a store and just use some, ask for cardboard. That's what I do. I'll put cardboard on a piece of plastic, get my paints out, and I get the other end of a pen or a paintbrush, and I just score, and I get some paint in my hands. I use my hands, I don't paint usually with a brush, and I just focus on the feelings in my body, and I really move and express what I'm feeling. And if you've seen my works of art, you can see them on YouTube. There's a few up there, but I have done hundreds over the years. That's my way. It's like channeling that feeling, the passion that I have within myself. And what I find is, when you do that, you channel that anger, that feeling into your painting. It then allows the energy to flow. So you've got this nebula, this ball of energy, of fire, and when I start to move the energy, it changes shape, and then turns more into a flow, into a river, so I can really feel that fire as I'm painting. And rather than being quite angry, it then flows into more Tai Chi. And say if I'm doing some of the bigger paintings that are 3-5 meters long, I'll dance, I'll flick, and it just feels very different. It feels, the energy's, boom, broken out of this stagnated bomb-like shape into fluidity. It's like passion. So that's the first step, I would say, is paint or draw, get pencils, and really embody this passion, this fire. If I go back to an example, when I was working in the south of England, and I'd been out of the monastery about a year, and I'd taken a job working corporately. Might have told this story before, but I found it quite a challenge in this new environment. I was used to just being in silence or in a very still place, and suddenly I was in a big office, 90 computers, and things wouldn't always go my way. And I could feel myself in the office some days going, I'm really angry. And I would just say to myself, okay, Piers, important that you go off painting. You go, at break time, lunchtime, because my studio was about 15 minutes away. So lunchtime, I would go to the studio, take my work clothes off, put on my painting gear, and I would just express, feel my anger, and I'd do these big canvases, and then I'd wash my hands, put my work clothes back on, and go back to work, and I'd feel so different. So sometimes, if you're feeling it and it's not appropriate in that moment to deal with your anger, say to yourself, it's okay, we will deal with this in a bit. When we do that, we can just get on with the day. We know that on one part of the unconscious mind that we are going to be dealing with this anger. But it's very important to honour that. If we don't, then boom, we can explode, because it keeps building and keeps building. So that's the first thing I'd say, is painting, creating. Another way of dealing with the anger is voice. It's feeling the anger and then expressing it. So singing, it's like, doesn't have to necessarily mean anything. You just connecting with that feeling. It's like, you feel it and you let it flow through you. And if it's tears which come, and I find with anger, if I'm feeling angry at someone, once I connect with the emotion and I sing or I dance or I paint, it transforms very quickly into tears, into releasing of it. And then I'm not angry anymore, because it's able to flow out, and the nebula of anger just drops away, and it becomes just energy. Yeah, so that's the second thing. You can sing. You connect with the voice. And when we sing, it's like that gives us so much more confidence, because our voice drops. We feel when we're talking, the voice drops, people really listen. And I was reading an article recently about someone saying that people who do have deep voices are more respected by other people. People listen to them. They have a presence. And I mentioned this to my wife, and she said, yeah, look at Barry White. People loved Barry White. He had a very deep voice. So that's the second way, singing. So the third way is exercise. You're feeling angry, go on to the punch bag, go dancing, embody it, really feel it as you move the body, really feeling this kind of a physical exercise, running. But don't picture the thing that you're annoyed at, feel the sensations in the body, because this is life force. There's nothing wrong with the anger, remember. It's like really feeling it as you're feeling that life force going, wow, this is energy, this is impetus to get me to do stuff. And then it helps to transmute. So I'd say those are 3 ways of dealing with anger. First of all, we create, we paint. Second, you sing. Third, exercise. And then when situations come up that might trigger us, well, there's not as much in the nebula. We might have a bit, but we've dealt with it. So we've sung, or we've created, we've painted, and not only that, we start to see our passion. It's like, oh, I love painting, or I love singing, or I love doing this, and you find different ways of expressing your passion. So anger is our gift, really. Is anger good or bad? Well, it's not really either. It could be bad on one level if we express it in a negative way, but it's good if we express it in a positive way. But essentially, it just is. Anger is just energy. It's just energy. And yeah. So my message to people is, when you're feeling it, acknowledge, I feel angry. And there's no need to engage with other people when you're in that space. If you do, then you like to get anger back. Just take yourself off somewhere else. Go for a walk. Feel it in your body. Sing, paint. When you're feeling it, just embody, feel it. I feel angry. Just like, oh, if you've got ME, like I had, and you feel that, it's like, oh, I feel energized. That's what anger is. It's like energy. So there's just a few reflections about anger. If you're feeling it, that's okay. That's okay. So, take care. Be well.